Hi, everybody. You know it's Monday, and you're a Browns fan if you have a pounding headache. Well, welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the Big and Furry Bovine. Joining me, Tony the Calf and Brian and Derek Frisbee from DF Sports. We got an hour to talk about the aftermath of the Browns football game. But I wanted to start out today really, what influences us is, the old saying, you are what you eat. And obviously, we are what we read. And there are some things that are really bothering me that I want to get off my chest. First of all, and it's not just about sports, it's just about everything. And I want to point out something. Everybody thinks that I'm like big time Mr. Liberal guy. No, I don't think an 8-year-old child knows if they are transgendered or not. I never even so much as paid attention to my penis when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, I saw that on the Biden fucking thing. I'm like, what the fuck?
I was playing fucking tetherball in the playground. Leave me alone.
No, you were getting beamed in the head by the tetherball.
Yeah, I'm not like pondering my gender when I'm 8 years old, right? So, but what we do is we read shit and we just start believing the shit we're reading. And it was interesting. I was reading an article about QAnon meetings, and I'm not going to go off on QAnon, but how in two different parts of the country, how different they were. And they all ascribe to certain, but not all the same kinds of theories. We are what we read. And so much of the Browns fans are the way they are because of what they've ingested throughout all of these years of failure.
Yeah, different brands of bleach.
Yeah, I mean, I just want the one that cures COVID so we could be out of
this
thing, okay? If we could do that, we'd all be happy campers. This is what I'm referring to, and there's going to be a wider thing than this. Headline: Baker Mayfield can't lead Browns to promised land, ESPN analyst says. All right, hot take. It didn't take long for ESPN's Get Up. Yeah, that's the Viagra program. Morning show to dive right into the struggles of Baker Mayfield, who threw two first half picks. Here's and get this. Last year, the Cleveland Browns tried to build their house on the foundation that was Baker Mayfield, said ESPN analyst and former Steeler Ryan Clark. This year, they tried a new thing. They said, we're going to build a house around Baker Mayfield to protect him. And what he's done already is lit the fire that's going to burn the house down. You can't win with a quarterback who plays football this way. All right, that's all I'm going to read of that because it's not really worth any more than the page that it's wiping your ass with it.
The only good thing about Get Up is when Pat McAfee's on there. He's the only good one.
Yeah, well, I mean, but this is what happens, and I'm not going to just point out just the Browns. Here's ESPN, that bastion of sports information. Here's a headline: NFL hot seat ratings, coaches and players who could get fired or benched in 2020. Including Adam Gase and Kirk Cousins. This is what we get, okay, is an article about jump to a guy that's on the hot seat. And they break it down into the seats are aflame. And, of course, Adam Gase and Greg Williams. Now, I'll say this about Greg Williams, and I told you this before, why I didn't want Greg Williams to be the head coach of the Browns, because he's got a big fucking mouth and he causes trouble everywhere he's ever been, and you cannot have a cogent organization built around a constant belly-aching, faggoty-ass prick like Greg Williams, who doesn't win to boot. And when his defense does shit, he blames somebody else, all right? The Jets are a perfect place for Greg Williams. He can stir up more shit and lose all at the same time, just like he did in Cleveland. All right? So you have Adam Gase and Greg Williams.
Just curious, before you get going, is Mike Zimmer on that list?
He's on the very hot seats.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, but yes doesn't mean anything because it's like, well, they're 1-5. They just lost to a team that hadn't won all year. This isn't. You don't need a fucking slide rule, to figure this shit out. And Zimmer's 64 years old. He's ready basically for the glue factory anyway. And, but what is the point of all this? And there's plenty more where this came from. Kenyon Drake, a running back from the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to pluck him out of everything. We're going to dig deep into the bowels of Arizona. He's 85 carries to produce 314 yards and just 2 touchdowns, but he's only caught 6 passes for 22 yards. So therefore, fire him, lock him up. And this is all what I'm going to be getting at in a minute, why we are the way we are in general. All right. Next, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, who had that great week 1. Well, now, what have you done for? Oh, wait, I did this wrong. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. What have you done for me lately? Okay.
He's having a pretty good game right now.
Yeah, but not according to this article, no, because it was written before the fucking game, because it's a goddamn hot take. They're saying, oh, no, he's looked like shit the last 4 weeks after a week 1 win. And now that they've brought in Levy and Bell, you see, and that's the leverage here for them to write a piss shit fuck article like this, is to get people inflamed and angry, because that's all we're about. Let's bring up Dave Gettleman. Are we going to resurrect this bag of bones? For goodness sakes, I really don't care. I don't care about Dave Gettleman. It doesn't mean anything. The Giants don't win. There's a lot of things wrong there. The moderately hot seat, AJ Green. The guy is old. He's had 47 injuries. Leave him the fuck alone. Nick Foles is now suddenly on the very hot seat. All right? They're 5-1, but it doesn't matter because, he was 23 of 39 for 198 yards. And he's throwing ducks. And obviously, Mitch Trubisky really had that powerful arm. So, that's something to pick from. What would you rather have, guys? Would you rather have syphilis or gonorrhea? This is stupid. If I have to choose between Nick fucking Foles and Mitch Trubisky,
for door number 3.
The choice is next to none. Yeah, the choice is next to none, man. Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn of the Lions. The Lions haven't won. I was in Michigan when Wayne Fonts was the head coach, okay?
The last time that they went to the playoffs, too.
That's right. And they pissed on them then because they'd always lose in the first round, And they would be a sure bet to make it in, and at the last second they fail and barely get in, or they'd have virtually no chance and they'd barely get in, and then they'd lose their first game. So, and big deal, it's like they won, but big deal, they beat Gardner fucking Minshew, the guy who's better than this quarterback and previous hot takes, who can't do shit now. And if you can only put up 16 against the Lions, but you see, Gardner Minshew is not on the hot seat because he was on they were on the bandwagon for Gardner Minshew just a couple weeks ago, and that would really look stupid. The Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator. If you put up 16 points, you're not going to beat the Giants. All right, they gave up 34 to the Lions, okay? They gave up 34 to the Lions. But now the defensive coordinator at Jacksonville, he's on the hot seat. Kirk Cousins, and there's a story that goes with Cousins, which is you want to make the biggest mistake of all, do what Kirk Cousins did, all right? Here's his quote: "I won't finish the season if interceptions continue." Did you hear this quote?
I saw it. It's it's a lie because we don't have anybody else. There's Sean fucking Mannion.
Yeah, but look at it this way. When Cousins is saying the reality is if the pace I'm on in terms of interceptions, if it were to continue, I won't finish the season. Why do you say that to the press? This is what they fucking live for. This is red meat.
Can you Can you imagine if Mayfield said that in his post-game presser?
Oh my God! Oh my God! He wins 4 games in a row, and
I would expect Sam Darnold to say something this stupid now.
Yeah, but you have a bow wow game against the Steelers, and now there's no way he's going to lead you to the promised land. Nobody said he was fucking Moses. Stop it! Jesus Christ! I mean, fucking burning bush. What was Baker Mayfield? It's like, my mom didn't raise no wuss.
Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
My mom didn't raise no wuss. I don't talk to burning bushes. Fuck that shit. Yeah, I don't understand why we as a people have this need. Why would you go to a gigantic rally with this? And Tony can tell you, I mean, knowing what you know now, Tony, without a political lean, just on the disease, would you go to a rally where nobody was wearing masks around you and you're crowded in like sardines?
I would not, no.
No, I mean, because the disease is a problem.
No, I have to preference by saying I did go to a rally before I caught COVID there were no masks.
Well,
I went to a Trump rally.
Yeah, and you just don't know. But I mean, when you look at it this way, and you have people, but why are they there? And the reason they're there is for red meat. Because Trump is an entertainer. Let's be honest.
He's a comedian.
He'll stand up there and entertain people. And some of the things he's going to say are going to be downright mean. And so the press picks up on that and says, if the president can get his ratings looking good, imagine what we can do with our publications and our television networks. And so now everybody's going hog wild with this nonsense. Look, nobody. Go ahead.
I was not to get political, but I mean, I don't care what side you lean. We can all be honest at this. Whenever it does happen that he's no longer president, the news will officially die because they won't have him to rip on anymore.
Well, look, they'll
just move on to the next thing.
That's right. And that's what they do.
He's the flavor of the month right now.
Well, he made himself the flavor of the month, just like Kirk Cousins. When you come out and you say things that are just way, I mean, that can be used against you, not just somewhere in the distant future, but in the immediate present, the news will seize on that. If it weren't for Trump, CNN wouldn't have a broadcast. There would be nothing else to talk about. They'd be talking about, well, maybe this hurricane might hit landfall and try to scare us that way. But the whole broadcast. And if it wasn't for Trump, Fox would have nothing to extol about the shit that we're in with this virus. Nobody would have anything to say if it weren't for this entertainment value. But the entertainment value is destructive, and it tends to make people lean toward their worst, the lowest common denominator. So we end up with Baker's not going to lead us to the promised land because the next Steeler says so. I don't expect the promised land. All right. I'm realistic. I also don't expect COVID to just disappear, nor do I think that you should live your life in your walk-in closet to avoid it. I believe that there are smart measures you can take, and then there are stupid things you can do.
You heard that, Tony, right? He said you should come out of the closet. That's what he's trying to tell you.
Oh, I've already been out of the closet, big boy.
So, and
this sounds like fucking Marge or like somebody named Marge with that, but I gotta stop.
Yeah, but Rick says it well. The Browns are a good team, especially from whence they came. They're further along than any of us expected. At 4-2, we should be happy. We're coming off a horrible game where we got outclassed badly, and the two divisional rivals are clearly better football teams than we are. But to sit there and say,
by the way, there's still 6 very winnable games on the schedule out of the 10.
But the promised land, it takes more than what we have. I mean, without pointing to Baker Mayfield, it's like, do you think the secondary and our safeties are going to lead us to the promised land? Do you really think that our linebackers are? Do you think our special teams are going to lead us to the promised land? You're talking about teams that have a complete roster of players, and they don't have glaring weaknesses on the field. Nobody was sitting there saying, oh, this is who they're going to pick on for the Steelers secondary. There isn't one. And that's the point. When you draft well, like we were saying after the game, you plug up those holes. But
there's name me a quarterback yesterday with what was there could have performed well. 2 seconds he had, they were in his face. They were hitting him 24/7. Receivers weren't open. Name a guy. Because it's easy to beat up on Baker because he just happened to be the guy in there. But all the people wanting to hate on Baker are not going to hate on Case Keenum.
Well, so what? So the first 2 passes that Case Keenum threw were wide open over the middle because they changed their coverage. But when they put their foot down, Case Keenum, he looked like Festus in Gunsmoke. What do you want me to tell you? He's not the answer. And now you finally believe me that Peoples-Jones, why is he even on the roster? I can't understand how Donovan Peoples-Jones was even a possible replacement as a wide receiver. There is just no goddamn way. That guy, did you see him running east to west? That was painful. The guy's got hemorrhoids. Get him the operation.
I like him, but he's got a lot of ways to go.
I don't like him because he's got no speed in a game where speed and separation are everything. But here's the bottom line. Everyone's going to point at the quarterback, all right? And it isn't one guy. And I know that's the famous saying, well, it takes all over the team. It's a team effort and every man, and next man up. But the thing is that the quarterback can't do shit if the people aren't blocking people in front of them. And if the play calls are rancid and they don't work against the defensive scheme that the Steelers are throwing out, that means the head coach was outcoached. And Stefanski he said so. I mean, he's not, he's not making shit up. Here's what Stefanski said about lessons learned from the game. I don't have my notebook in front of me, but just so many things that I think schematically you look at, then you look at us, you look at them, and then you look at us. I'm not going to get into specifics, but I would tell you there are plays that we ran yesterday that I would not run again. And there are things that I did yesterday that I would not call again. There are just so many little things that I learned a lesson, obviously in a hard way, but that's what you have to do. You have to say, all right, because we're going to see this team again, and obviously we're going to play a game this Sunday, and we have to be ready to roll. What can you do moving forward? And so much of it throughout the season is evolving. And we have to continue to make sure that we are evolving and getting better, all right? The question came up, why were we struggling against the defensive line? How much of it was due to the game plan versus the offensive line getting beat? Here's what he said. Again, it's a combination of things with the plan itself. We scored 7 points, so obviously the plan was not good enough. We'll look at it, figure it out, concepts that we like, formations, you name it, and what we can do better. At the end of the day, all of our guys know that they have to play better. You have to win your one-on-one matchups, and that is part of having a successful offense. We've done a nice job to date of winning some one-on-one matchups. To their credit, it was the Steelers that did a nice job yesterday, and they looked like they were flying around, and we weren't. And I know what Rick said in the chat room, that we don't need Myles Garrett yucking it up with Tomlin. I couldn't agree more. The fact is, Tomlin is an enemy of the people. He is not a nice person. He is a person who is paid to be a mercenary in essence, and he is not your friend. And that's the bottom line. And Myles Garrett, if you're going to be a nice guy, you're in the wrong fucking sport. One pressure in 25 pass situations for Myles Garrett, it's not good enough. You can't just be good against marginal teams. You got to play large against really good teams. And, that's what it is. Everybody knows what happened if you watch the game. The offensive line got beat. Baker played poorly. The wide receivers were not open, and the scheme, as far as the play calls, were not effective. They kept Baker in the goddamn pocket where he's not comfortable and where he doesn't do his best work. And the running game never even got off the ground because, once we took our foot off of it, we never put our foot back down on it and never tried to re-seize control of the offensive line situation. We just conceded it. And that's bad coaching and that's bad playing. But to sit there and write hateful articles about this, it sounds like the presidential election campaign of who can insult who the most. It's like watching the news networks. Who can call whom what? If Donald Trump calls Fauci an idiot, all right, and CNN calls, Trump a narcissistic liar, and this is our news?
That's 2020.
Yeah, it's 2020. I mean, could you imagine Walter Cronkite back in the 1960s? And it's like, Lyndon Johnson's a cocksucking motherfucking asshole. That's the way it is. I mean, in my generation, I'm 63 years old. This is awful. But this is what people are getting off on. So much so people will go to a rally and risk having what Tony has here just to get that little lift, that little adrenaline flow, because life isn't real easy right now. Things aren't real good right now. And look, they wouldn't be good in a Democratic administration either. This virus is real and it has stripped our ability to do lots of things. It was funny. I was
everywhere.
Get this. And this is a little story, non-sports oriented, but Rox is walking the dog, but I was looking for a Christmas present for Rox. And she loves to sing. God only knows. She loves to sing. So I was looking for something that first I was looking for earplugs for myself. And then I was looking for sorry.
Ice picks and the eardrums.
Yeah.
Somebody clip that.
And then I was looking for something that she could utilize for her online singing. And the company is TC Helicon, which does a lot of vocal processing products. And they're owned now by Behringer, which is a big company that handles a lot of different products. And there's none of them to be found. There's none of the vocal processors available. So I called up, Guitar Center and I said, well, what's going on here? And they said, they shut the plant down for 3 months. They haven't been producing anything. I mean, look, you don't hear about this shit, all right? And it's because of the pandemic. Companies, regardless of what they're talking about, stimulus packages and all this, companies are hurting. Employees are hurting. Everybody's hurting. Everybody feels bad. And the only sugar rush people can get is with negative bashing to go on. It's like, come on. Look, you should be happy.
And this is why I get so upset when you say, "Well, we have to shelter inside. We have to keep the economy shut down." It's like, well, this is the end result. You have companies that aren't producing anything. You have businesses that aren't going to be reopening anytime soon.
6 of one, half a dozen of another. It would be bad no matter which path you took. If you took the path of we're going to keep people out of work, then there are no employees, nothing gets manufactured, nothing gets done. And yes, the big guys in the company, they have their golden parachutes, they can land safely, but then the workers have no money and they may be healthy, but they're not earning any money and their families aren't eating. If they go in, then the goddamn people with the golden parachute stick them in an environment that isn't safe and they end up getting COVID and then they're back out of work. They shut the factory down and they're out of work. I mean, there is no win in this right now. People are feeling really bad. And I don't blame people for feeling bad, but we've taken this dark turn that what gets us revved up is all this hateful stuff. And not for my sports team that's 4-2. It's like, and you may say it's human nature, Krembly, but not to this degree. This has gotten crazy out of hand. And go ahead.
I know I get labeled, or at least in the past, I've been labeled as the college prospect guy. Let me tell you something. Where the Browns would be picking in this draft would be likely I don't know how we're going to finish, but when you look at the schedule, likely 20s, maybe. Tell me if I'm wrong. There's 3 quarterbacks in this draft who are really good. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Besides that, you have a bunch of project guys who you'd have to get a veteran to sit behind. The Browns are not in a position to where you can say, hey, Justin Fields, come into this situation, great. You would have to trade up a massive, massive amount to do that. So everybody's saying that it's just a snap of the fingers and this is solved is crazy.
Look,
and then by doing that, you set the team back so far that you're in rebuild mode anyway.
Derek, you know what I know, and that is if you draft and you build up the team, and Stefanski, he matures as a head coach, and the system gets instilled into the players, it takes astute drafting. And look, Russell Wilson wasn't a top pick. The fact is, you have to find, the guy who is like Patrick Mahomes who drops in a draft. You have to have astute people who can analyze people far better than I can, because you're far better than I am at that, Derek. I don't, but you got to have astute people who are helping you make these decisions.
Well, not only that, it's development. It's development. Look at the draft Baker was in. Lamar Jackson came into the league, could not hit the broadside of a barn throwing. Go back to his combine. He was terrible.
That's right.
What happened? The Baltimore Ravens switched up everything they had with Flacco, figured out his skill set, put him in a position, and now he's become a pretty decent thrower. So, you can go down the line with every quarterback, and it's like we said before the show. I'm amazed Baker's even as decent as he is right now with, we can talk about the situation later, but I'm just saying it's not as simple as, hey, pick this dude, trade for this dude. It doesn't work that way.
Right. I mean, but that's the way people want the sugar pill. They want the immediate silver bullet, the magic bullet that cures all ills. It doesn't work that way. What I'm saying is what any intelligent person would say. If you build a front line, which we're doing, and you get depth there, if you have the running backs who are still young men and in good health, you got that. And you have a good game management quarterback, not a great quarterback. And, then you have to start looking for value wide receivers, the guys who, like when Wallace was recruited by the Steelers, the guys who are like 3rd round picks who become really prolific receivers. You have to hit on some of these people, 3rd, 4th round, or even 2nd round, people who might not be the obvious choice. And guys like Claypool, who are just kind of wallowing in the bottom of the 1st round, the beginning of the 2nd round, and teams passed up. You got to have people who can help you select and analyze these players. Because what will happen is if you load your team up with good players, you're one lucky hit on a quarterback away from becoming a big winner. All right. Maybe Baker Mayfield will never take us to the promised land. That's not the point. The point is you've got to draft more people, especially they're saying, let's just stack our defense. Stack it? We got to have a defense on the field first. We don't have anything. I mean, you're not going to stack this in one off season.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
No,
and Steelers, go ahead.
Look at how many players they've turned over in the last since 2017. I mean, is anybody left? I don't think so.
The Steelers' defensive line is built off of a bunch of top picks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you don't have
the linebacker who went down.
Yeah, you don't have a bunch of
Bush.
top picks in one offseason.
Devin Bush, yeah.
So I will say this. Let me throw this out here, and then I'll let you go. Quinnen Williams from the New York Jets was picked top 3 from Alabama.
Yes.
They're supposedly open to trading him. Would you consider that? Because I thought that's an interesting conversation.
I would have to look. I don't pay attention. I know who he is, certainly, and I know where he comes from. I don't know what the problems are. And just because the Giants picked him number 3 doesn't inspire me any more than it would inspire me if the Browns picked him, like we have in the past several years. To me, the only thing that I know is that incremental improvement means incremental better players. We don't have starting NFL players in our secondary. We have a major problem. And Baker Mayfield had to score 34 points a fucking game for us to win 4. You got it? I mean, it's not like we had a lot of room to spare in any of the wins. I mean, that we were giving up points is, in bunches to Dak Prescott. We were on the verge of folding. So to talk about Baker Mayfield, do you seriously believe, based on looking at that game for a second time, do you really believe that Baker Mayfield would have made a damn bit of difference? They had us outflanked. They were outperforming us. They were playing at a more spirited level. They were faster. They were more aggressive. They were focused, and they had a better game plan. What more do you want to know? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're just not gonna, you're not gonna turn a one-legged horse into a thoroughbred. It don't work that way.
Brian's right. The Steelers did that turned out to be a smart move because they were picking low in that draft and they traded their first for Minkah Fitzpatrick, and you see how quickly that changed their secondary, and we've seen what happened Sunday. So, I mean, if I was Cleveland, honestly, I'd be considering, I seen this in the chat, calling up Denver and seeing what they'd want for Simmons. It wouldn't hurt, and it'd certainly help the secondary.
Yeah, we need, first of all, we need interim help if we even want to be an above 500 team, because we're not able to stop the forward pass, and Joe Burrow will hurt us this Sunday. He will hurt us. He put up a good number of yardage last time and put up points. We're giving up way too many points, and when we finally didn't score up, we get slaughtered. We gave up just as many fucking points. I mean, that's what it comes down to. But to blame the quarterback, you got to build a whole team. And I've yet to see a team come out of nowhere like the Jets or the Redskins now. And, it was like when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got Steve Young, to start his career, right? And
Testaverde.
Yeah, I mean, they were a disaster.
In fact, the Testaverde draft was when they traded him to the 49ers.
Yeah. Then he gets into the 49ers system after Montana and it's like, oh, hell. I mean, he looked like a completely different guy. Suddenly, his mobility bought him time in the pocket rather than running for his freaking life. And it made all the difference in the world. You build the team and the quarterback hopefully will come. And it's what happened for Bernie Kosar. Bernie Kosar came, but look at the front line. The front line back then was solid. It was just like Roethlisberger coming to the Steelers. He didn't go 15-1 in his rookie year just because he was the greatest guy who ever lived. He had a team around him. Yeah, you don't go 15-1 without having magnificent defense, a solid offensive line, a big-time running game. We've made strides. Our offensive line's so much better. Our running backs are so much better than they were. And our quarterback is better than it has been. But on the defensive side of the ball, it's just not there. We don't put the heat on quarterbacks. We don't put pressure on people. I hate to say it, but Myles Garrett is the most over-publicized, doesn't show up in important games player on the squad. He's an amazing talent, but somehow it's like there's the whole and there's the sum of the parts, and then there's the parts themselves. The parts are somehow better than the sum of the whole, and I don't understand it completely. But he wasn't there yesterday.
What really concerns me about where we're at right now in the conversations we're having is the Browns have a decision to make on Baker as far as the 5th-year option, and then after that, future contract extension. So I don't have an answer, I really don't know, and I fear that what's happened to Mitchell Trubisky is going to happen to Mayfield. And I think Baker is better, but the situation we're in right now, offensively, there should not be a ton of excuses. And if he doesn't at least show positive signs, I don't know how they keep him.
Well, I'll address that. I mean, you don't have much time, and that's the way things happen. You got to make a clean decision on something. If you continue to improve in the right direction, the scheme is generally better than it's not, and your offensive line goes back and really starts performing, your running backs do well, then you keep Baker Mayfield, because if you do what you're supposed to do with this schedule, you should be 9-7, 10-6. It is possible. It could be done. And no quarterback, if Baker Mayfield's butt hurt over a 9-7 and 10-6 record after having to deal with Freddie Kitchens last year, if that's enough to make him mortally wounded in his soul, that he is the wrong guy for the team. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's another reason why he will continue to start. They need to figure out what they have with him. We're only a few games in. I know we're about to halfway point. He's shown some signs that he can step up and be a good quarterback again, like we've seen year one, and then we've seen the really bad. They got to figure out what the middle ground is, and that's why Case Keenum ain't going to play or start. How good would Baker Mayfield be, not just on the field, but emotionally, if he actually had a defense that could stop the running game, and if they actually had a defense that kept teams out of the end zone, and if he was playing with a team that was consistently yielding 16 to 20 points to 22-point average per game, and if he didn't feel that everything that he had to do had to be absolutely point on perfect, but you don't score now, you're down because you give up the opening drive. And it's, in the case of, the first play from scrimmage that Roethlisberger threw was a fucking easy pick for Terrence Mitchell, and it bounced off his fucking chest. If you had a defense that could hold the other team, then Baker Mayfield doesn't have to be Superman. And maybe that's all that, maybe because he's driven to the point where he believes that he has to be that, and then he can't live up to it. And I'm sorry, Steve Young couldn't live up to it. I can tell you countless people. Jim Plunkett couldn't live up to it. There were lots of people who came out as first-round picks out of the draft or high first-round picks that couldn't live up to it because they went on to play for lousy teams that didn't have a surrounding cast of characters. You stay with what you got, and the reason is you don't have an apt replacement. And you try to draft a quarterback lower down and hit a jackpot is what it amounts to. But you cannot abandon the quarterback who has invested himself in the scheme and go back to a guy and have to reteach it to a new guy all over again. You have to make progress. The team hasn't made progress in 20 fucking years because we keep screwing around. Sign the guy to the goddamn deal, and you come out with a winning record that this year, nobody would have expected it based on coming out of a pandemic with no practice, no preseason, and coming out of the whole debacle that was Freddie Kitchens. Nobody would have expected it. So that would be considered 9-7 is a successful campaign. No, he's not doing everything the way you want him to. But Jesus, what are you going to get that's better?
What was the record last year? Was it 4-12?
6
and 10.
6 and 10.
6 and 10.
I mean, realistically, anything better than 6 and 10 is fucking an improvement.
Yeah, and again, under harsh circumstances.
Yeah.
Well, and look at this. The problem you have now is Kevin Stefanski has a system, and if you try to replace Baker Mayfield, you're going to have to find a quarterback that can fit that system.
Yeah, or teach it to a guy who doesn't know it, who's going to be more hesitant than Baker because he'll have no real pro experience. Yeah, nobody could be in favor of that. That's crazy.
And I really do. It's easy to say, but I'm telling you, I really do blame Freddie Kitchens for a lot of the little habits that Baker's picked up. Just the little stuff that you notice, not trusting what he's seeing. Just the happiness in the pocket. You didn't see that year one. He was slinging it. He's seeing. Look at that. Go back to that play against the Carolina Panthers in his rookie season. I forget what it was. I think it was like play action. He rolled to the left. He threw it into double coverage in the only spot that Landry could catch it. If that was today, he's rolling out and he keeps pumping it and then he throws it away. He's not the same guy anymore. And you got to take the steps to get him back to being that guy.
Here's what was asked of Kevin Stefanski to this point you're bringing up. How a quarterback can move past a mistake with a read and continue to trust his eyes moving forward. And Stefanski said, you said it, you have to trust your eyes. You have to process and believe what you see. And you have to do a great job pre-snap and post-snap to understand the coverage. That is part of playing quarterback. And it's something that Baker has done a nice job of, and I think will continue to do. The thing is that I agree with you. When he starts patting the ball down or looking at one thing and where he's predetermined where he's going to go and then throws it to Minkah Fitzpatrick, or he's back and he sees the pocket crumbling around him and he starts panicking and looking around rather than keeping his eyes downfield, you're not going to make the plays and you're not seeing what you need to see. And that is confidence, it's ability, it's comfort within a system. And look, you're now 6 weeks into a season with a new system, and we just got done playing a team that is obviously a better defensive team than we have faced at any time this year. They were really played a great game. And I don't like the Steelers, but they really did play a very complete game. So
they wanted to send a message too, because everybody, including myself, went into that game saying, who have you played? You played a bunch of terrible teams. You kept it close. It felt like they went into that game trying to send a message of, hey, we're going to beat a team that is in our division that you guys keep saying is a good team. They have a good record, and we're going to stomp them.
No, Baker should get 5 plays max a game to be given complete freedom. I mean, look, a good quarterback should be able to audibilize, but there's a reason why Baker is not getting that. And let's be honest, I think Stefanski can't have a quarterback who's unfamiliar with his scheme audibilizing out of plays. I don't believe that's the answer. I believe the answer is for people to do their freaking job, block up front, give the man time, and make people are going to make mistakes. 4-2 is so much better than what we're accustomed to. If we end up at 8-4, I'm going to be even more enthralled with the whole situation. And with winning comes a degree of confidence, not just in yourself, but in the scheme and the people around you. I just wish that the rest of our team was reliable. I think that when the offense comes off the field, you can't blame the offense. You really can't they lost to 2 teams that were just really good. And yesterday was just an outstanding defensive performance. But you can't blame the offense when the defense week after week is giving up close to 30 points or more a game. Yeah, because there can be no bog down on the offense. The offense didn't convert third downs, 1 for 12. They didn't convert fourth downs. They didn't convert anything. They couldn't keep the ball in possession, so they were turning it over, and the defense can't stop anybody. So it's, the whole thing to point to one player, it's crazy. And that one player will take it upon himself to try to do more than what he's capable of doing and more than what's needed in the scheme. What's needed in the scheme is what every scheme needs. It needs the defense to get the other team off the field 3 and out and get field position. Not to be behind at every fucking game. It's to get out in front and to be able to control the game with what you do well. And I don't know, we have no defensive identity whatsoever. If you ask Joe Woods what in the hell it is, he's trying to patch holes. You don't know. I mean, players aren't there. So, I don't think that criticizing them in the media like this is such a great thing. I think that it's, and this, we'll lose against the Bengals. I don't know what they're going to do. To be honest with you, I'm not going to take the doomsday approach with this. I'm going to say this will be an indication of a gut check, character check, coaching check, belief check.
A reminder to the gallery that, they got obliterated by the Ravens and turn that into a 4-game winning streak. Yep. We'll see. Yeah. If they do that again, guess what? We got 8 wins. 8. Yep.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to predict. I'm concerned because I've seen many Browns teams in the past go in the tank after something like this. But I think Stefanski has a better hold of the reins on that, and I think he is going to go back to a tried and true offensive play calling structure. I don't know what he was thinking against the Steelers, but boy, it did not work. Sometimes we outsmart ourselves.
Well, in this Bengals game is a game that Baker will be starting. Stefanski has already said that. This game is about getting your confidence back, playing your brand of football, getting back to what worked, and building your confidence off of that.
Hey, Zantastic, are you a Steeler fan? Yeah, we played JV ball. That was something that I actually, put in the show description. I mean,
that was middle school ball. That wasn't JV. Are you kidding
me? We looked like a JV team against a varsity team. We really looked like we were outmanned.
Or a freshman squad against the varsity.
And when somebody says, at least you guys aren't 1-5, who's your team, Zantastic? Yes, sir. And you should be proud right now. Your Steelers played a great game, and you're not going to get that from Cleveland sports talk radio personalities. I'm not into the hate thing. I wanted to beat your team really badly. I have a dim view of some of the things that have happened in the past in our series, as far as injuries that were brought on by what I would call dirty hits. There's a long history of it. Had nothing to do with yesterday, man. Yesterday, you just from the start to the finish dominated the Cleveland Browns. So you're never going to hear a bad word. If you play the game clean, you play the game right, you play the game hard, you deserve to win. And they deserve to win by that 38-7 score. That was a clear indication of what the game looked like. Sometimes scores are closer than they appear. No. In this case, that's exactly what the final score should have been. And that's right. I know. But when you said you guys, I knew that you were not a Browns fan, and I assumed that you were a Steeler fan. And go back and tell the people on the Steeler forum that, I'm a fair-minded person. I'm willing to admit when somebody kicks our team's ass. And at least we're not 1-5. It could be a whole lot worse, but you wouldn't know that from reading the damn press today. It's crazy.
Oh, and Mary Kay Cabbage for Brains went after Njoku again.
Oh,
well,
with saying, or either that or he clapped back at her saying that she erroneously reported that he personally requested a trade.
No, actually, what is being said right now is that he wants to be traded still by the November 3rd, trade deadline. Not that he has requested it. He rescinded that on August the 1st. But he probably should want to find a new home because he's really doesn't fit into this. He's a tight end who doesn't block at all. And we're fine with the two guys we got. They're more physical players than Njoku. They just can't jump as high, and they may not be able to bring the ball in around the goal line quite as well as him, but he's not going to get a lot of snaps. And he could get a lot more snaps somewhere else. He has a right to play where he can do better for himself. I got no problem. Let's get something we need for him. I'm all for it.
Bingo. Use him in a package. Put a pick with him. Go get a decent player. Start on your defense.
That's right. I mean, we're covered at tight end. That's what it amounts to. And he's the odd man out. And that happens all the time in sports. Yeah, trades happen. Things happen. And, free agents come in, and that makes other people expendable. And David Njoku is expendable. He's not going to fetch us a real high price, though. But if it gets us somebody who can do a better job in our secondary, then I'm all for it.
There's got to be a desperate team out there. There always is.
Well, I mean, you would think that again, Njoku is a physical, specimen. And he can add something in a certain scheme. The problem is tight ends in the Stefanski scheme are blockers as well as pass catchers. You can't be kind of a slow-footed wide receiver, but with a big wide body frame. Antonio Gates was in exactly the right place where he needed to be, there are a lot of tight ends who catch a lot of passes downfield, and the scheme they're in is perfect. Njoku has to find the right team, the right scheme, and it will work for him. But a team's going to have to give us at least something that's going to help us now. We need help now. And you're welcome, D-Cup. I love doing this show, and I love good viewers who stick with the program. That's and
I said at the beginning of the season that Harrison Bryant would pass Njoku on the depth chart.
Go back to training camp. He dominated.
Hey, Zantastic, thank you. You have a good night, too. And, luck had nothing to do with what you did. As a fan, I hope that your quarterback stays healthy because that's a huge, huge thing. I'm still not sold on the Pittsburgh Steelers running game without Ben Roethlisberger in that backfield. I hope for your sake he stays healthy because things can change in a heartbeat. But thanks for stopping by, and I'd love to see you again. That's great for you to.
Ravens and Steelers is going to be a damned interesting game to watch.
It's going to be two completely different approaches as far as the offensive side of the ball. Very, very different, and it will be very interesting.
Shane Johnson, I miss Freddie Kitchens. Yeah, nobody's ever said that one before.
And so what do they here's some other things where people should just keep their mouth shut. Cam Newton says there's no need to press the panic button after the loss to the Broncos. Why do you bring up the panic button? Second of all, with the exception of a Super Bowl you lost in, you're an underachiever. Third of all, when you came to New England, you said, I'm going to be the beast. I'm going to be the beast like I was before. And you're not the fucking beast that you were before. Just shut your mouth and play the fucking game. All right? Cam Newton went 17 of 25 for a lousy 157 yards with 2 picks. He noted that his timing was off. There's always an excuse with this guy. Just keep your mouth shut. Same thing with Adam Gase, I wasn't happy about defensive coordinator Greg Williams' veiled shot at our offense. Well, the fact of the matter is Nobody would be. But why do you have to go back to the press and feed them more red meat? The New York Jets, they're both going to lose their jobs. Greg Williams always loses his job, and Adam Gase is going to be fired at the end of the year. We already know that. It may not even be at the end of the year, the way things are going. But why bring it up in front of the press? It's crazy shit. Just crazy shit.
The Jets, honestly, it looks bad right now, but I think their future actually isn't completely terrible. I think, obviously, Gase is gone. I would bring in Eric Bieniemy because he's an offensive genius. You see what he's done with Patrick Mahomes. So draft Trevor Lawrence #1 overall. He's way more talented than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is not talented enough to overcome that dysfunction. Colin Cowherd quote on Baker Mayfield. Let me use that one against you, buddy. So you do that, bring in Bieniemy, and just rebuild. Build around a once-in-a-lifetime prospect who, same thing they said about Andrew Luck. But I don't think they're in a terrible spot.
Well, look, I would say they're in a terrible spot because their ownership is pathetic and their front office is pathetic. And it's like the Giants, you got Gettleman sitting there. You have problems in the front office, and they find a way to screw things up. All 65 snaps, Andrew Sendejo and Denzel Ward. And that'll tell you everything you need to know. Denzel Ward's a football player, and Andrew Sendejo really sells popcorn, after the game. Childrick Redwine played all but one, as did Terrence Mitchell. I mean, it's weak sauce back there, man. And Kevin Johnson is now once again the team's nickel cornerback. He played 42 snaps, but didn't reward the team with a performance that was worthwhile. Of all of the linebackers, B.J. Goodson took 57 snaps, Malcolm Smith 34, Mack Wilson 31, and Taki 21. The interesting thing is Mack Wilson was horrible in this football game. He ranked out lower than anybody. Olivier Vernon played 85% of the snaps and actually graded higher than any of the defensive linemen. And if it didn't show on film, these are the statistics. These are the PFF numbers that we're looking at. And the player grades specifically, I'll just share them quickly with you before we get out of here, and you can decide what your eyes saw. Olivier Vernon with a 73.3, Myles Garrett down to a 63.2, Jordan Elliott 61.8, Missy Elliott, lousy last album, Adrian Claiborne at 60, Porter Gustin, they didn't really hit the field very much. Sheldon Richardson at 58, and Ogunjobi down at a 54.7. They did not have a good game. But B.J. Goodson, with all of those snaps, 57, rated at 85.7. And Taki was a 78.3, but only based on 21 snaps, which means he's a situational guy at best. Mack Wilson, a 37.3. Yeah, that's not real good.
And if you watch Mack Wilson closely from that game, he's still visibly hurt. He's very hurt.
Be the case, yeah.
He was grabbing at his knee, it seemed like, almost after every play, or at least like flexing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, it's
But you know what concerns me the most about this secondary in particular? We were told in training camp that when Greedy Williams went down, it was a minor injury. We have now played, 5 games into the season. He said on his Instagram Live that he would be back for the Washington game. And here we are with our problems in our secondary. And now I'm not saying he'd be great, but he would be fine for depth. At least get on the freaking field.
Who are you talking about? I'm sorry.
Greedy Williams.
Oh, yeah. Well, Greedy Williams is not going to play. He's got nerve damage in his shoulder. Look, I mean, I'm not going to tell you. And once I found out it was nerve damage, it's like, it's like a stinger that won't go away. You see, when you have a pinched or entrapped nerve, you can't lift your arm. You can't raise your arm. You got no motion.
And forget tackling.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That'll feel like somebody's ripping your arm out of your socket.
You ain't gonna wrap anybody up. So,
they should have put him on IR a lot earlier. Then
I agree. I mean, and once I found out it was nerve damage, I was like, oh shit, man. Why? What were they hoping for? That it would just, the pinched nerve would go away. And it doesn't do that in a lot of cases, you know? And yes, Sean, Garrett was triple teamed all game. But again, it's up to the defensive coordinator to come up with a scheme that, I mean, why wasn't there any pressure? If they were triple teaming him, where were our other guys? I mean, it's
Aaron Donald gets triple teamed every game.
That's right. And he still shows up. And I don't know. If you know how to stop Myles Garrett, if it takes 2 or 3 guys, you do it, because there's obviously no one else to be afraid of. Hey, a compliment.
What is this?
He says he's proud of you. You've really grown since the last time he heard you on the air. Your voice has changed and your nut has finally dropped. Way to go.
No, that's the magic of a different microphone and better system.
Yeah, it's funny. People will say to me, sometimes it's like, geez, I can tell, they listen to the podcast. You were on the radio at one time. And it's like, the good thing is when I'm in the neighborhood talking to people, and they go, were you ever on the radio? And it's like, I'm doing that without processing. But processing makes the world go round. That's, believe me, Rush Limbaugh would be Rush Limbaugh, but he wouldn't sound exactly like Rush without the processing, right? Yeah. Or the guy who did the commercials, something like, well, how would this go? Sunday. Wait, we can do this with. We can do this. Wait a minute.
Shadow Stevens.
Sunday. Thrill to the nation's leading funny cars at Dragway 42.
I was gonna say that sounded like a car commercial.
Yeah, but that's how it gets done.
Or a monster truck rally.
Yeah.
But
same thing with the news people too. They, you get that news voice.
Yeah,
Brockman.
I was never going to be a disc jockey, believe me, because I was one and I wasn't good enough to and thank God I wasn't good enough, because what I did, I enjoyed more and it was more profitable. But
ironically, at the same time as Rush Limbaugh.
Well, Rush Limbaugh did okay being a disc jockey. Me, no, I wasn't talented that way. But I have the residual vocal capacity. But I'd have been a better talk radio show guy than a top 40 disc jockey, because be a top 40 disc jockey, you have to.
And no, I think the Falcones are married to their quarterback, Matty Ice.
Yeah, I think that's not going to go anywhere right now. And really, the Baltimore fans are complaining about their offense.
If he is ever on the market, he's at a point in his career that he'd be better off retiring.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, David. If the Steelers pass by the Ravens and bump them out of the playoffs by some coincidence, those Baltimore fans really don't like Harbaugh. They really don't. And that's what the rap is on the offense, is that Harbaugh's a defensive-minded coach and not opened up the offense significantly. So that's where that's coming from.
Even though Jackson has more pass attempts this year than last year.
Right.
Go
ahead.
Talking about the whole broadcasting thing, I'm getting ready to start college, whatever, at least, looking into it. I want to go for sports media. It's amazing how there's not a whole lot out there.
They've shrunk the industry down with consolidation and all. It's a tough world. It's not the world that I grew up in that business at all.
But then you see the Colin Cowards of the world. How did they get there?
Well, I mean, believe me, the best of the best will get there. People who are the most determined will get there. But boy, sometimes it's, if you could sit down and talk to Rush Limbaugh, and I don't like his acts, but a lot of people do. He had 3 or 4 acts previous to that where he was an abysmal failure. He finally found the right message, and it all changed for him. This is to get through the clutter of sports talk right now. You really got to have some kind of special thing about your delivery in an act that is unique.
Or
that's the trick.
Talk about unique. Stephen A. Smith made it just yelling at people. It's his entire gig.
But everybody knows what he is. He's like a human caricature, but everybody knows who he is. And that's part of the way you find an act that suits whatever it is you're doing. I got to get out of here. It's 5 minutes after 7. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. And, Tony, do me a favor. Private message me the name of the pregame show. No, the pregame show that you're going to be doing before the games begin.
Yeah, I'm going to still go over that the next couple of days here while I'm still in quarantine. And
please do. And let me know where people can tune in so I can give you a little tweet so my subscribers can grab hold of that. Okay?
Will do.
I'm telling you, name it out of the closet. I'm telling you.
Oh, God. All right, thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. We'll be back again Friday to talk about what the Browns must do to get by the Cincinnati Bengals the second time. Until Friday, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.